I recently went to the movie theatre to go and see Ryan Coogler's latest blockbuster, Sinners, a culturally rich vampire film that is impossible to be defined with the genre. But there was one moment in this film that I was blown away to have seen in the cinema. A moment which, seen anywhere else, would not leave the same profound impact, cementing it as a cultural landmark in cinema. We'll get to that soon. Audiences' interest in cinema going is rapidly declining. With the impact of COVID-19, Screen Australia records a massive decline in movie theatre attendance in the 2020s, with the lowest point being 2021, with only 31% of Australians attending the cinema, and the latest being 2023 with an average of around 59%, with frequency of attendance per year dropping from 10.5 in 1974 to as little as 4.8 in 2023. That was a lot of numbers to hit you with straight away, but what I'm trying to say is there's a clear decline over time in cinema going. But why does this matter? Why not just embrace the shift to streaming? Well, that's what I'm here to tell you about. I'm here to convince you why going to your local cinema and being a part of an active audience, laughing together, crying together, is better than just streaming from home, and why you should still be dragging your butt to your nearest theatre to watch the latest and greatest flicks. In a time where cinema going is declining, here comes Black Panther and Creed director Ryan Coogler with his smash hit return to the original blockbuster in 2025's Sinners. And holy shit, dude, I could glaze this movie for the rest of the video if I wanted. It's a film oozing with passion, with stellar writing, characters, cinematography, music, set design. I mean, I could seriously go on and on. This is the essence of what blockbusters really are. This is pure cinema. I personally got the privilege of going to see Sinners at my nearest cinema. It was amazing. I went with my mum and dad, and they also had the same opinion. But what I can already say from that is that despite what Sue Turnbull states in her book Imagining the Audience, that most media audiences do not exist, at least not in a visible way, this was a shared cinematic experience of a real audience. And this is where I get to that scene that I made all of you wait to hear about. And this is the I Lied to You scene with Miles Canton's character Sammy, in which Sammy performs this musical number in the centre of the juke joint. There's a voiceover from Annie reads that some have the musical talent to awaken the spirits of ancestors from past and future. And as Sammy performs this song, the aspect ratio of the film expands and the aperture tightens in on him, giving this otherworldly feel as all of a sudden we are given what I think is one of the greatest wonders in film history. As musicians from all across African culture and history begin entering the frame, hip-hop dancers, a DJ, tribal dancers, a rock star with an electric guitar, until eventually the camera raises to the ceiling in flames. I literally saw people in the cinema, including my parents, with their jaws on the floor in shock of how much of an awe-inspiring, never-before-seen scene this was. In similar moments, such as when Stack turned, some were at the edge of their seat, this was me, and some watched in shock. My point here is, where is this when watching this on streaming services? The I lied to you scene would have nowhere near the same impact on a laptop or a phone or even most televisions as it would on a big screen with high quality audio and no distractions. The immersion of the cinematic experience and the shared audience experience were massive parts of this film, and without it, this would not be the same. Without it, we lack a large portion of the lingering, profound effect that S. Brent Plate speaks of in his 2020 text, Cinema, the geo-religious aesthetic. We don't walk away knowing us and our fellow audience members shared such a terrific experience. This concept of the shared experience is further explored in Lise van der Vyver's study, The Cinema is Dead, Long Live the Cinema, Understanding the Social Experience of Cinema Going Today. In the study, van der Vyver defines the cinema space as the single source which gives audiences the feeling that they have had an experience, stating, according to Allen, understanding space as the sphere of coexisting heterogeneity means that the audience cannot be conceptually reduced to the spectator, and that the experience of the cinema does not exist outside the experience of space. As such, it is a product of historically specific practices of social interaction. Acknowledging the space of cinema means defining its sociality and inherent eventfulness. Therefore, this proves my point that the cinema experience is something much more tangible, an experience that we associate with a space and a memory, giving a film much more impact. Another reason as to why the cinematic experience is such an important part to Sinners is that those who were privileged enough to experience the film in IMAX got the authentic, intended experience of the film, as Coogler shot the movie on 35mm IMAX film, and this shows in moments such as the highly acclaimed I Lied to You scene, in which the aspect ratio expands mid-scene, and the audio surrounds audiences. Upon the film's release to streaming, this experience would be lost. A portion of the immersion and the experience is gone. Returning to the previous statement of Sue Turnbull I mentioned, although this notion is somewhat true as we live in a more digital world, as corny as that sounds, but I feel as if supporting and perpetuating this is just to become complacent and accept the shift, to move on from cinema going and real audience experiences. In his interview with Jimmy Kimmel, I think Quentin Tarantino puts it best on why movie theaters are important.
Studios are rethinking whether theatrical releases are worth it. Make the case right now for the big silver.
When a movie comes out that you're interested enough to see, and it makes you leave your house and buy a ticket, and you could do anything in the world you want that night, but you decide to go to see a film, one film in particular, and you go to see it, and maybe you're on your own, maybe it's in the afternoon, or maybe it's with your date or your wife or whoever, and you go and see it, and you buy a ticket, and you sit down, and you have an experience, with a bunch of strangers. And at that moment, once the movie gets going, once the lights are down, you become a collective. And when you have a good experience, it's not always a good experience, but when you have a good experience, those are the things that stay in your mind and that you remember for the rest of your life, and they become indelible snapshots.
Okay, I'll go to the movies.
I completely agree with Tarantino here. Would you feel more connected sitting on your ass at home watching Netflix, or sharing that beautiful experience with a group of like-minded people who are also passionate about whatever film you're watching? Likened to Van der Weiver's claims, going to the theatre, like Tarantino puts it, is a whole memorable experience, whereas streaming services are merely a disjointed component of this experience, hence why it feels as if something is missing when watching certain films at home. For example, I didn't get to experience the massive blockbuster that was Top Gun Maverick, and only got to see it when it was moved to streaming. For many who saw this film in theatres, it was a pure spectacle, but for me, it was good, because I was missing the entire charm of the film by watching on a television in my living room. I think to just agree with what Sue Turnbull is saying here is to just accept the fact that cinema is dead and move on. And that brings me to S. Brent Plate, as Plate makes a strong statement in his text that when we watch films, we sense worlds beyond our own. Even while our own world gets recreated, we do not just see other worlds through films. Rather, films touch us. Once the show is over, we stand up, go out into our world, and begin to see, hear, smell, taste, and touch it all just a little differently. He labels cinema as an extension of humanity, and I completely agree with this concept. Of course, a film can impact us in profound ways, changing our thought processes and ideologies, but, and yes, there's a but, Plate then goes on to state that films impact us the same whether watched from home or on the big screen, and I completely disagree with this. Of course, it can still impact you, but where's the immersion? Where's the connected experience? Cinemas allow people to gather, having a shared impact among a present audience, and the immersion factor is completely ignored here. Would you feel a more profound impact watching at home on your couch with various distractions of life, or in a dark room, seated with large screen, immersed within the world of the film among an audience? I believe this impact is much more profound and can leave you with more to take away from a film, as you are able to be within it with no distractions for a short moment of your life. The The cinema is connection, the cinema is immersion. Without the cinema, a part of the magic, the extension, as Brent Plate puts it, is lost. The verdict of the dilemma between cinema versus streaming is a clear victory for cinema. And this is evident in Jason Yi Chung Ho, Jehoshua Eliasberg, Charles B. Weinberg, and Berend Weringer's collaborative study on enjoying watching movies in a theatre versus at home, a comparative analysis, in which they deduced from the study of 148 wide-release films between January 1st, 2018 and February 9th, 2020, that average IMDb ratings of films have a definite drop between ratings from their cinematic release and their streaming release. In the study, they announced that this is particularly evident in blockbuster films, as the cinematic experience is a crucial aspect of the film. Now, this is not to say that the films are bad, but it's merely to give evidence that the movie theatre is a clear enhancement from streaming services, providing a true experience, as Van der Weiver stated, a space of sociality and inherent eventfulness. Hence why I strongly believe that the cinema is an eternal, tangible memory that makes streaming obsolete in comparison. Therefore, I plead for all of you who are watching this, please go watch Sinners at your nearest cinema. Don't become complacent and keep the cinema experience alive.